Hi everyone, this is Lulu with As You Wish Pottery. In this video, we'll be painting this super funky Shania wine glass. As always, all of our supplies will be listed on the lesson plan, so let's get started. Alrighty, so to begin, we're going to use a pencil to trace the images on the lesson plan onto tissue paper. If you've done any class with me before, you know that that's how I like to do it. Feel free to read through the lesson plan on those first few steps, and I'll take you through how I create all the traceables and things like that. And then once you have everything traced onto tissue paper, you'll put it onto the piece. Make sure that you start off with whichever side will be your front, and then transfer all your designs over using a marker. Alrighty, so for this part, we're going to use the pencil to sketch a large star on the lower right side of the writing. We're going to sketch some basic lines for a cactus towards the top left of the boot, another cactus on the lower left side of the writing, and lastly, we're going to sketch the placement of the little flower that sits above the cowboy hat. Just know that I also sketched my serpent, so if you feel like it's kind of uncomfortable to trace on, you can just sketch it on with the pencil. Here's a little slow recap so you can see everything that we've done so far. Now we're going to use our small round brush and we're going to paint the disco ball circle with 1 to 2 coats of water yolk. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to our detail brush, and with it we're going to paint the belt on the middle of the cowboy hat. We're also going to paint the top strap of the boot. And we're also going to paint the star on the side of the writing with 1 to 2 coats of water yolk. Now we're going to use the same detail brush and the same water yolk paint to paint the letters E and R on the front writing. Now you can use a short brush, a long brush, or a small brush to paint the horseshoe with 1 to 2 coats of In the Pink. Now we're going to switch to a short or long detail brush to paint the letters T and O on the front of the cup with 1 to 2 coats of In the Pink. Next, we're going to rinse off that detail brush we just used, and with it we're going to paint the S letters and the I on the front of the cup with 1 to 2 coats of Jumping Juniper. Once we're done with the writing with the letters, we're going to use the same detail brush and the same color to paint the swirly accents around the disco ball. And whenever you're done with that, you can also paint the boot or outline the boot and then switch to a small or a medium brush and paint the rest of the boot using that same Jumpin' Juniper color. Next, we're going to rinse off our detail brush, and with it, we're going to paint the small flowers above the hat with 1 to 2 coats of Red Blaze. So as you guys see, this little clip is slowed down just so you can see how I created the little dainty flowers by just creating lines that meet in the center. Next, we're going to use the same brush and 1 to 2 coats of Red Blaze just like we did earlier, and this time we're going to paint the snake that sits underneath the hat. Once you're done with the snake, you can use the same brush to paint the 2 G letters on the front of the cup with red. Now we're going to rinse out our detail brush. Remember to always rinse out your brushes whenever you're starting with a new color. And with it, we're going to paint the 2 L's on the front of the cup using 1 to 2 coats of Orange Crush. Next, we're going to use the same brush and the same color, but this time we're going to paint the lightning bolt on the right side of the cup, and we're also going to outline the cowboy hat, and then you can switch to a small or a medium brush to fill in the rest using that same orange color. I'm just going to continue on using my detail brush. Now I'm going to switch to a large square brush, or you can also use a fan brush to paint the inside of the cup with 1 to 2 coats of Orange Crush. Now we're going to use the detail brush to paint the stems and the leaves of the small red flowers, and we're also going to go ahead and paint the cactuses that we sketched earlier with 1 to 2 coats of Kermit. For the cactuses, try to create a trunk first and then paint each individual arm as you're going. Start with thinner lines and then thicken them up as you go. I like to start my top to be thicker and then my bottom to be thinner. So as you see, I kind of go heavier towards the top and then lift my brush as I'm ending my stroke. Now for the fun part. Now we're going to rinse off the detail brush once more, and this time we're going to use it to paint vertical and horizontal lines in the middle of the disco ball. I started here doing the outline of the disco ball, but you don't have to exactly start there. You can start by creating those curvy grid lines. As you see, there's some that go from left to right and some that go from top to bottom, so you can just figure out however way you want to go about it and create as many grid lines as you like. I tried to keep it simple and just only have the middle 2 lines, and then I just added 2 lines above that and 2 lines below that, and same thing left and right. And then once I had my lines kind of created, I just went in and just kind of cleaned them up and made them a little bit thicker and things like that. Remember that with black, 1 go is enough. You don't need to go crazy with it. And then also remember that I like to start off my lines kind of thin and then thicken them up as I go. So don't be worried about starting thick. Just worry about that later on. Worry about thickening up as you go later on. Once we're done with that, with our disco ball, like you see here, what we're going to do next is we're going to add all the little accents around our cup. Keep in mind though that you have the sample as guide. You can also just watch here to see what I'm doing. But you don't have to do everything I'm doing. If there's anything you don't feel comfortable outlining or detailing or doing anything like that, feel free to skip it. I feel like there's a lot of really bright colors going on in here, and it really gives you the freedom to just go about creating the piece however you'd like to, or illustrating it however you'd like to. I also added some stars in some places, in some other cups that I did. It just depended on the space I had to fill. So if you feel like everything seems pretty good, you can just keep going as you're going and outline whatever you want to outline, and have fun with it. Remember, all the little accents is just to bring everything you painted to life. It's just to give it a little bit of an extra oomph, but it doesn't have to look exactly like mine, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing. You can totally go ahead and do your own thing. So a little tip and trick I learned along the way was that I like to have my black lab paint be a little bit thinner than it typically is, just because it allows me to have a little bit more control and a little bit more flexibility as I'm doing my lines and things like that. So I can start off a little bit thinner and then thicken up as I go, and I feel like the paint has less chances to blob on me that way. So what I'm trying to say with that is just find your own groove, find your own thing, figure out how the consistency of the paint is working for you. Maybe practice on the table first before you actually do it on your piece, but find anything to make it more comfortable for you. Find a different tool and things like that, and always remember to start thinner and work your way up to thicker as you go. Okay, so now we're going to use a toothbrush, a small brush, or a medium brush to splatter the inside of the cup with black lab. Once you're done with that, you can use Q-tips to finish off the piece by painting some dots on the rim with black. Alrighty, so here's the piece we painted in this video, looking so cute. And then once it's fired, all the colors brighten up and everything looks awesome. Thank you so much for painting with me today. Have a great one. Bye-bye.